This is heartbreaking and animal cruelty in Florida. A man has been arrested after Lee County Sheriff's Office says he shot his neighbor's pregnant cow 5 times when the animal wandered onto his property. Actually, what happened? Why did you do like this? Now let's deep dive into this AI podcast.
Okay, let's get into this. A Florida man arrested for shooting a pregnant cow. I mean, you hear that headline and it definitely stops you in your tracks.
It really does.
But it straight away makes you think, okay, what happens when these, classic property line arguments suddenly involve livestock, big animals?
Exactly. And we're looking at this news report out of Lee County, Florida, that really puts that scenario front and center.
Yeah.
It's more than just a kind of weird local news item. It really highlights that friction point,
Yeah.
where property rights, animal welfare, and, well, the law all kind of crash into each other.
Right. So our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is to get past just that shocking headline. We want to dig into the details, figure out exactly what unfolded, what the charges really mean, and get a feel for the broader picture around these kinds of conflicts. So what were the absolute key facts from this report that jumped out at you?
Okay, well, several things. First, the place, Lee County, Florida, then the people. You've got a 55-year-old man hung Trinh and his neighbor.
The cow's owner.
Right, the owner, who actually raises animals commercially, so it's part of the business.
Ah, okay.
And then, of course, the animal itself, a 2-year-old cow.
Yeah.
And she was pregnant.
Pregnant, right. And the alleged actions, they sound pretty extreme.
They really do. Mr. Trinh is accused of shooting the cow 5 times.
5 times?
Yeah. Stomach, chest, rear leg. That's what the report details. Apparently after it wandered onto his property.
Wow. 5 shots. You can't help but think about the sheer intensity of that. And it sounds like this wasn't just a one-off sudden thing. The report mentioned a bit of history here.
That's a really critical point. This wasn't completely out of the blue. There's apparently a documented history of issues.
Okay.
The neighbor cows had, it seems, wandered onto Mr. Trin's land before. And maybe the most troubling part, Mr. Trinh had allegedly made threats before.
Threats? Like what?
Like saying he'd shoot any livestock that came onto his property again.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah, it really points to that tension you can get in rural or semi-rural areas where farmland bumps up against residential property. There are often local rules, fence laws they call them,
right,
about who's responsible for keeping animals contained. But if those aren't clear or aren't followed, well, you can see how things unfortunately escalate.
So it sounds like a conflict that was just simmering away and then it hit this really tragic, violent peak. The aftermath described in the report is, well, it's quite upsetting, isn't it? Deputies arriving, finding the cow alive, but really badly hurt.
Yeah, critically injured.
And the sheriff's office even shared a video. That must have really brought home the reality of it all.
I absolutely did. And the outcome, sadly, was pretty inevitable. A veterinarian came, assessed the injuries, and decided euthanasia was the only humane thing to do. Just too severe. It's a really stark reminder, isn't it, how vulnerable these animals are.
Definitely. Which I suppose leads us straight to the legal side. What kind of trouble is Mr. Trinh actually facing now?
He's looking at 2 felony charges.
Felonies? Okay.
Yeah. Aggravated animal cruelty, which is serious in itself, and also theft of a commercial farm animal.
Theft? How does that work?
Well, because the cow belonged to a commercial farming operation, harming or killing it isn't just seen as cruelty, it's also viewed as destroying or stealing valuable property. It recognizes the economic value.
Ah, okay. So it hits on the cruelty and the financial loss to the neighbor's business.
Precisely. It covers both the ethical side and the economic impact.
And he was arrested pretty quickly. I saw the report mention a bond was set.
Yes. Arrested and booked into Lee County Jail. Bond was set at $100,000.
$100,000. Wow.
Yeah, substantial. And his arraignment was scheduled for June 16th. Sheriff Carmen Marcino also put out a statement. Very strong words.
What did he say?
Basically emphasizing that this kind of thing won't be tolerated, that people will be held accountable. He really highlighted how important these animals are to the farming community there.
You definitely get that sense of community importance, the role of agriculture.
Absolutely. The sheriff's statement really drives home that they see this as a serious attack, not just on an animal, but on a way of life, on someone's livelihood.
It's interesting, too, that the report makes a point of mentioning this wasn't the first time cows had wandered over. It gives that background.
Exactly. That history of the property line disputes is crucial context.
Right.
And the fact that the neighbor runs a commercial farm, well, that directly ties into that theft of a commercial farm animal charge we mentioned. It underlines the money involved.
And those alleged prior threats from Mr. Trinh, it just paints a picture of, well, escalating tension, doesn't it?
It really does. It suggests a situation that was maybe heading towards a confrontation.
And yet, despite the cows apparently wandering before, the sheriff's office looked into the fence, right? And they didn't find anything obviously wrong.
That's what the report says. No clear flaws, nothing that would easily explain how this specific cow got out this time.
So that kind of adds another layer. It wasn't necessarily just a simple case of a broken fence.
It definitely raises questions. And then finding the weapon, a .22 caliber firearm on Mr. Trinh's property, seems to support the allegations.
Yeah.
The public information officer, Julie Sin, also made a really important point.
What was that?
She stressed that, this whole thing could have been handled differently, that there are ways to deal with loose animals, to report them to animal control or the sheriff's office. You don't
take matters into your own hands with a firearm.
Exactly. There are nonviolent channels.
That message about finding, a civilized way to sort things out instead of violence really lands hard here. You think about the cow's owner, the impact must be huge.
Devastating, I'd imagine.
The report said they declined to appear on camera, which is understandable, but it mentioned the distress and the financial loss, especially a pregnant cow intended for sale. That's a direct hit.
Absolutely. It's not just the emotional trauma of losing an animal in such a, brutal way. It's a significant financial blow for someone whose business depends on those animals.
Having seen people who work with livestock, even on commercial farms, there's often a real connection. Losing one like this, it's incredibly tough.
No doubt. It's multifaceted loss.
Now, to kind of broaden the lens for a second, the report tossed in a couple of other, you could call them unusual cow stories.
Yeah, those are quite something.
There was that one in Connecticut, 2019. Cow escapes a meat market, ends up getting slaughtered in a Home Depot parking lot. I mean,
couldn't make it up.
Right. It's bizarre. But these other incidents, even though they're quirky, they sort of underscore that livestock aren't just, passive objects. They move, they react, they get into complex situations with us humans.
That's a good point. Like the property dispute in Florida, it just took a particularly dark turn.
And that other one, the Polish cow, escapes a slaughterhouse truck, swims to an island, becomes a local hero.
Only to die from stress during the rescue attempt later on.
Yeah, so tragic in a different way. These stories, they're outliers maybe, but they highlight how unpredictable things can get when animals and human environments mix.
Very true. Very different circumstances from the Florida shooting, of course. But they do show cows popping up in unexpected, sometimes heartbreaking headlines.
But they really do. Reminds you they're living beings. But okay, let's bring it back to Lee County. What's the main takeaway message the officials there seem to be pushing?
I think the core message is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Handle disputes, especially ones involving animals, calmly. Use the proper channels, stay within the law.
Right.
There are ways to address things like wandering livestock that don't involve violence or taking the law into your own hands. That seems to be the key point.
Okay. So we've really dug into this deeply concerning incident down in Florida. We've looked at the specifics of what allegedly happened, the very serious felony charges Mr. Trinh is facing. And we even touched on those other kind of remarkable cow incidents just to give a little bit of broader context.
We have. And we've seen how what might start as a neighborhood disagreement over a fence line can just spiral into something truly awful, serious animal cruelty, major legal trouble, and, profound emotional fallout.
It really makes you pause and think, given how much emotional and financial investment goes into raising livestock and seeing how easily property disagreements can escalate, what are some different routes people could take? Before it ever gets to this kind of tragic point, what other approaches might have worked here, and maybe what lessons can you, the listener, take away if you ever find yourself in a similar spot, hopefully a much, much less extreme.
Should property owners allowed to use deadly force against animals that trespass onto their land? Comment it. Thanks.